Home is where the heart is, but it's also where we fight our toughest battles with those we love. No one is perfect, including the Jamison family, but the fate that befell them was cruel. Sherilyn, Bobby, and little Madison Jamison were looking to start over in rural Oklahoma when they vanished. What followed left a family heartbroken, puzzled, and devastated investigators and intrigued internet sleuths. Today on Dark Matters, the case of the Jamison family. When Sherilyn and Bobby Jamison met for the first time, it was love at first sight, and in 2003 they married and had a daughter together, Madison. Bobby, Sherilyn, Madison, and Colton, Sherilyn's son from a previous marriage, lived in Eufaula, Oklahoma without incident until 2009. In the weeks leading up to October, Colton saw his mother's mental state take a turn for the worst. In addition to her depression brought on by the unexpected and tragic loss of her sister 2 years earlier, she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Despite having occasional manic episodes, she reportedly didn't consistently take her medication. But Bobby was also suffering. After a car accident that left him with round-the-clock back pain, he too fell into a depression and was in a legal battle with his father. Not being able to work while still maintaining their family meant money was tight and stress was high. The family also talked to a local pastor after claiming they saw spirits in the house. Bobby and Sherilyn argued, but, according to family, still fiercely loved and cared for their children. But they knew something had to change. Upon seeing an internet advertisement for a 40-acre plot of land in the rural San Boy Mountains, 30 miles away, the Jamisons saw an opportunity to start anew. Around the same time Madison was pulled out of public school to start homeschooling, Colton moved back in with his father, leaving just Sherilyn, Bobby, and 6-year-old Madison to venture to Oklahoma's Panola Mountain to observe the property. On October 7, 2009, the trio, plus Madison's puppy Maisie, set out to explore the mountain. While driving down the dirt roads amongst abandoned oil wells, cliffs, and dense forestry, they found themselves lost and stopped to ask a man, a landowner, for directions. After, the family decided to return the following day to see the property. So, Thursday, October 8, 2009, the Jamisons returned to the mountain in Red Oak, Oklahoma, and no one hears from them or sees them for days. At first, this wasn't alarming. The family often shut themselves away and didn't maintain constant contact with friends or family. But then, on October 16th, 8 days later, around 3 p.m., someone noticed a truck abandoned on the side of the road, with standing water from the recent rain pooled in the back. The Latimer County Sheriff's Office arrived at the truck with a sense of foreboding and urgency, as a dog was trapped inside and severely malnourished after going days without food or water. Several people saw the vehicle parked on the side of the desolate road but didn't report it, thinking it belonged to an oil or gas well worker. After getting the dog to safety, Sheriff Israel Beecham and his deputies examined the contents of the car, and each discovery is more alarming than the last. Inside were wallets with IDs, a GPS system, coats, a prescription pill bottle with an unknown man's name on it, and both Bobby and Sherilyn's cell phones. Police theorized the family wandered into the forest and were lost, but then they found an 11-page letter written by Sherilyn to Bobby. The letter radiated resentment towards him, and friends and family confirmed that the pair had been discussing the possibility of divorce. However, according to a close friend, Nikki Shenold, the letter was a type of therapy for Sherilyn, a way to deal with her emotions, and that she still loved Bobby. Then, another shocking discovery. Underneath the driver's seat was a bank bag full of $32,000. Reportedly, the Jamisons regularly carried large quantities of cash with them, but perhaps not to the extent of $32,000. If the Jamisons were financially struggling, where did they get the money? Despite intending to purchase property, the high amount seemed strange. Investigators used the cell phone's GPS to track the Jamisons' last known trek. The trail led up a hill where they found several sets of muddy footprints. One clearly was Madison's. The GPS showed they stopped near a rock for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. At this point, police believe this photo was taken. There is debate over the context of the photo. Some say they see Madison in the midst of a tantrum, while others see a highly uncomfortable child forcibly smiling. Police believe Bobby or Sherilyn took the photo, but family and friends do not, saying Madison's smile seemed strained and distressed, despite always being happy to pose for a camera. They believe someone else took the picture. The GPS coordinates show that they returned to the truck and embarked down the dirt road to leave when the car stopped, where it was discovered 8 days later. There was no broken glass, shuffle marks, or signs of a struggle nearby. It was as if they'd walked off and disappeared. Family and friends were more concerned, however, by what wasn't found in the car: Sherilyn's .22 caliber pistol. Less than 24 hours after the truck's discovery, an extensive search of the area began. Searchers on horseback, scent and cadaver dogs, law enforcement officers, helicopters, and fixed-wing aircrafts scoured the mountain and surrounding area. The rough terrain and the mud made searching extremely difficult, and by the end, there wasn't a single trace of the Jamisons. Local authorities teamed up with the FBI to follow every lead, but they were met with dead ends, despite missing posters plastered across the state. But as Sheriff Beecham dug into the Jamisons' background, the threads of the case tangled even further. Both Sherilyn and Bobby reportedly received disability money and had sued 3 people involved in Bobby's 2005 car crash that caused his back injuries. In the weeks leading up to the disappearance, Sherilyn and Bobby dropped weight, stopped receiving child support payments, and had trouble paying off their home. The couple also confided in a local pastor that they saw spirits in the house and that angels were communicating with Madison. Bobby asked the pastor if, quote, special bullets were available to eliminate the ghostly entities from their lives. The pastor, Gary Brandon, described the Jamisons' turmoil as spiritual warfare. Police did find a witch's Bible inside of their home, but Nikki claimed her and Sherilyn each bought one months earlier as a joke. Nikki wasn't the only person, however, to experience Sherilyn's fascination with the unconventional. Connie Kokoden, Sherilyn's mother, played off her daughter's declarations that she was a witch, but Sherilyn was vocal about this statement. After a family cat passed away from a suspected poisoning by a neighbor, she wrote a graffiti message on a shipping container on their property that read, "3 cats killed to date by people in this area. Witches don't like their black cats killed." However, friends believe Sherilyn made this statement more to isolate herself from neighbors, as she didn't like being bothered. Putting aside the eccentricities of the Jamisons' lives, authorities turned to possible suspects. Bobby's uncle Jack Jamison was questioned when it was revealed Bobby's father cut everyone save for Madison out of his will. However, authorities didn't feel Jack was involved. Then there was the name on the prescription pill bottle found in the truck. Authorities traced it to a former friend and handyman who boarded with the family in July of 2009. Sherilyn allegedly openly admitted she had Indian blood in her family, and the boarder said he believed anyone who wasn't purely white needed to die. Sherilyn saw this as a threat to her child, so she grabbed her gun and forced him to leave, telling him to never come back as she fired warning shots at his feet. The encounter upset Sherilyn, who confided in Nikki, crying that she'd never shot a gun before. Police traced the former boarder to Wilburton, Oklahoma, but after providing a solid alibi, he's not considered a suspect. Then there was the man who last saw the Jamisons, the landowner on the mountain who offered to help with the investigation. However, he claimed he never saw anyone go up or down the mountain after last seeing the Jamisons. It appears he has also been cleared as a suspect. 4 years passed without any new leads, and the case's momentum slowed. Then, on November 16, 2013, hunters riding four-wheelers through the forest happened upon the skeletal remains of 2 adults and 1 child in a desolate area away from any paved roads. The bodies were precisely positioned, laying side by side, face down in the dirt. While the distance from the abandoned truck to the bodies was a direct 3 miles, with the winding roads and wilderness, the distance was closer to 7 miles. Due to the deteriorated condition of the bodies, it took 8 months for the coroner to conclude the bodies did belong to Sherilyn, Bobby, and Madison Jamison. The vanished family reappeared, but not in the way authorities, family, and friends had hoped. Glimpses into the Jamisons' life, the circumstances of their disappearance, and the lack of evidence have all spawned numerous theories about the fate of the Jamison family. There are those who believe they were looking to start over covertly, faking their own deaths or staging a disappearance. Then there are those who think that they were in trouble and entered the witness protection program. There are even theories that the family simply wandered too far from the truck, became lost, and died of hypothermia. However, the chances of this last speculation seem unlikely. Bobby was raised in rural Oklahoma, and navigating the wilderness was second nature. That, coupled with his back problems, it's difficult to imagine he could have traversed through the rough, dangerous territory with his wife and 6-year-old 7 miles away simply after becoming lost. Which is exactly why authorities, family, and friends all believe their disappearance and deaths were calculated. But the who and the why have yet to be answered. These are the main speculations. Theory number 1. The Jamisons were involved in cult activity and were killed by members of a cult. There has been heavy denial from those closest to the Jamisons that they were involved in the occult or witchcraft, but Nikki believes Sherilyn might have been the target of a devil worshiper. Near the abandoned truck was a wrecked car with graffiti satanic messages on it. Nikki claims that Sherilyn wrote over the messages with words of, quote, peace and love. However, only one source mentioned this detail, so I'm hesitant to confirm this. Nikki also said she received a call from an anonymous woman who claimed a cult called the United White Knights had the Jamisons on their hit list, but she later dismissed the claim as invalid. So that moves us to our next theory. The Jamisons witnessed a crime and were kidnapped and killed to keep them silent. Authorities believed that on the way down the mountain, someone stopped the Jamisons, but it's unknown who. Some theorize that they were stopped after witnessing a crime and were forced from the car at gunpoint, since there was a lack of any struggle near the truck. According to the family, the San Boy Mountains are notorious crime hubs. The remote wilderness attracts white supremacists and meth dealers. If the Jamisons saw illegal activity, it's possible they were deliberately silenced. This, in addition to alleged claims that Bobby, shortly before his disappearance, reported on a meth dealer, which could have put a target on his back. Theory number 3. Bobby's estranged father was somehow involved in the Jamisons' deaths. To understand this theory, we have to look at the family feud between Bobby and his father, Mr. Jamison. In a petition for a protective order, Bobby Jamison said his father threatened to kill him and his family, once in November 2008 when Mr. Jamison allegedly hit Bobby with a vehicle, and again in April of 2009. Mr. Jamison, according to his son, was a, quote, very dangerous man who could escape the law and was involved with, quote, prostitutes, gangs, and meth. The threats and Mr. Jamison's rumored Mexican mafia connection left the family feeling, quote, scared for their lives. So much so that they installed security cameras at their home. But Bobby's feud with his father had a much longer history. Mr. Jamison allegedly pulled Bobby out of school over the course of years to have him work at a gas station he owned, without paying him any wages. Because of this, Bobby and his father came to an agreement that when the gas station sold, Bobby would receive half of the sale amount. However, Mr. Jamison backed out of his end of the agreement. Still, authorities don't believe he was involved. He was in failing health and died just months after Sherilyn, Bobby, and Madison disappeared. Theory number 4. Sherilyn's mental illnesses led her to a breakdown that resulted in a murder-suicide. This is an extremely dark assumption, and I want to emphasize that this is a theory. Mental illness does not always equate to violence or extreme measures. So let's look at the facts. Bobby and Sherilyn battled with severe depression. Bobby due to family disputes and his back pain, and Sherilyn from the loss of her sister. Sherilyn was also diagnosed as bipolar and reportedly didn't always stay on her prescribed medicine. This likely added tension to the marriage, and it was known that the couple argued and even considered separating. If Sherilyn did have a manic episode and wasn't on medications, it's possible something pushed her over the deep end. However, citing Sherilyn's upset state after firing a gun at the border, it's difficult to believe that she'd be capable of killing her own family, though people prove they're capable of more than we think all the time. The family also thinks that no matter how tumultuous the marriage was, Sherilyn wouldn't have hurt Bobby or Madison. Then, our final theory, number 5. Due to money troubles, the Jamisons turned to drugs, which was directly connected to their disappearances and deaths. In the months before their venture to Panola Mountain, Bobby and Sherilyn supposedly took on an emaciated appearance. Some think that the financial problems made the couple desperate enough to either use or distribute drugs and cite this as the reason that there was $32,000 cash in their truck. However, it's important to note 2 things. Several reports said it was normal for the family to carry large sums of money. Secondly, they were on their way to buy land, so it makes sense that they would have had money with them. But this begs the question, where did a family struggling to pay off a mortgage come up with $32,000? Did the family turn to dealing drugs and land themselves in a dangerous deal turned deadly? That question hasn't been answered by authorities. The main piece of evidence many use to back up this claim is security camera footage of the day the family vanished. Pointing directly at the front driveway, the video shows Bobby and Sherilyn, quote, in a trance-like state, loading up the truck, going back and forth over a dozen times without speaking or acknowledging one another. However, family also contests this theory, saying there was no way Bobby and Sherilyn could have provided for their children if they'd been on drugs, and that they were clean at the time they vanished. There was also no evidence in their home to suggest they were using. As for what the family think happened, Connie, Sherilyn's mother, says, "What I truly believe is that they went up there, saw something they shouldn't, and were murdered by someone. Who? That I just don't know." Due to a lack of leads, authorities can't rule out any possibility, and years later, there are still no answers. Madison's dog Maisie was the only surviving Jamison and was reportedly taken in by a family member. After receiving confirmation that the bodies belonged to their missing loved ones, both sides of the family held a memorial service to find some semblance of closure, despite the lack of answers. The cause also took a toll on the investigating team, namely former Sheriff Israel Beecham, who reportedly left in 2011 to work overseas. Nikki alleges that the sheriff was wrecked with guilt for not being able to solve such an important case. The family vows to never lose sight of hope and to never rest until they have answers. Colton, Sherilyn's son, reflected on the time leading up to the disappearance, saying, "The thing I find so strange is they never mentioned anything about moving out to the mountains to me. They didn't say anything." Nikki, after years of searching for answers about her lost friends, said, "I just don't know where else to look." And until new evidence comes to light, authorities likely feel that same painful sentiment. If you have any information on the circumstances surrounding Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison's death, you can contact the Latimer County Sheriff's Office at 918-465-2021. That's 918-465-2021. We can all only hope that one day all of the Jamisons' questions are answered. Special thanks to the Patreon family. The names you see on screen are just some of the people who financially contribute to this channel. Whether they are passionate about cases like the Jamisons or the other dark content on this channel, their support cannot be overstated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, Information is in the description, but even if you only continue to support by watching, thank you. Thank you for giving the Jamison's case a moment of your time, and no matter what you choose to believe or what you speculate, I ask you only for respect in the comments below, and remember, though these may be dark matters, the darkness always matters. Thank you for watching the video. Exposure to these cases is highly important, and to those of you who support this channel by watching, contributing, or buying merchandise, thank you. If you want to see other unsolved cases or dark content, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Stay safe, friends, and have a good night.